To crack CAT, you need a lot of practice, and you can practice by taking Krako's free mock. Just Google search Krako free CAT mock. Follow the link to get the free mock. We have put in a free mock with the latest pattern and with detailed solutions. Hi friends, welcome to Krako's video series. I'm Saili Kale. I'm one of the co-founders of Krako and an alumna of IIM Ahmedabad. In today's video, we'll take a look at what you should plan to achieve in the month of May. So a lot of students have been asking us for a month-by-month schedule or a schedule that they can follow. So Krako puts up a schedule for different crash courses depending upon the time you start. We have made a schedule that will help you cover all the concepts, and it is a day-by-day schedule. But if you're not able to make time on a day-by-day basis, if you want something in terms of what you should achieve in the month, then this video will cover at what you should look for if you're starting now, what you should look to achieve in the month of May. So this is not a granular schedule, but this is looking at what you should aim to do in this month so that you have a good foundation going up to leading up to CAT. So we'll be doing this on a month-on-month basis. Basically in month of May, we'll look at the fundamental topics that you should be good at. Basically making sure that you start off with a base where you can attempt at least 70% of the questions that are there in the different sections. Then in June, we'll start to look at the more finer concepts that are involved in each of these topics. Look at the topics with lesser weightage but which are still necessary if you have to get beyond get to 99 percentile and all. So here now we'll be focusing on the fundamentals as such. So in this month we'll be looking at those topics that are must do, that are essentially the foundation of your CAT attempt. So let's take a look at the general rules that you should follow in the month of May. So as I said, I've said this multiple times. So if this is the time from now till CAT day, you should make sure that your initial concept building is a major part of the portion, but this goes on decreasing with time. So say it is 80% of your time now, it should become 20% of the time you spend as you come nearer to CAT day, and practice should be 20% of your time now and then 80% as you go nearer CAT. So this part should be learning, and the yellow part should be practice. So think of it in terms of 80-20. Learning should be 80% now, 20% later, and practice should be 20% now and 80% later. So basically you should know that more than spending time on solving papers, you should be focused on learning different concepts, as many concepts as you can now, and because you can't leave it for October or November. In October and November you should be like in complete go mode for solving. You should just be solving papers and practice sets and just keeping on solving previous papers. So you should be in a complete mode at that point of time. At that point of time, you should only be revising concepts which you have missed. So essentially that's kind of a revision mode, not learning new concept mode. So essentially this should be the distribution of your time as such. So we generally recommend that everybody puts a 3 hours every day for learning. So 3 hours every day if you put, and over the week that's 21 hours. So you should make sure that you spend most of it initially at least learning the different concepts that are there. If you have to make a bifurcation, just say that 2.5 hours for learning, half an hour for practice, and if you are taking the mock, that is obviously 3 hours, so that represents 6 days of half an hour each. So take mocks, take one mock every 2 weeks, and for the other time practice by solving practice sets, solving sets that are there in different types of previous papers, or from our, for example, from Krako's practice platform, you can go to the specific topics and start solving. So in terms of learning, I don't mean just reading. Learning is active learning. So reading a particular concept and solving concept tests from that particular topic. So the 2.5 hours is not just reading. 2.5 hours also involves solving, also involves attempting LR sets, also involves attempting RC sets, but that is more focused solving. That is not general solving. General solving in the form of taking mocks you should do, but that should be say 3 hours mock every week, or say around 1/5 of the time that you are doing, do general solving. 80% of the time you should do targeted learning, where you are learning a concept, solving questions from that concept, learning a particular theorem, applying it. That is how you get actually better at a particular topic, by doing targeted learning in that manner. So that is what I would suggest, that at the beginning, at least in May, make sure that you go through all the theorems, go through all the formulae, go through the cheat sheets of every topic, and then solve questions using those formulae. Apply those theorems. Only when you actually solve using particular concepts, do those concept sticks. If you just see how a question is solved, that would not increase your skill level. Your skill level essentially increases when you successfully solve a particular question using a concept. So whenever I say that spend some time learning, it should be active learning. You should read a concept and then you should use it, apply it and solve questions. So that is how you should spend your time in the initial months before CAT. Now let's go on to specific topics. How do you prepare for those topics? So as I've said, in Quant, the bulk of your attempt is on geometry. Bulk of your attempt in CAT Quant would be geometry plus arithmetic. So it makes sense that you spend your initial months focusing on this topic. If you get these topics right, if you are confident of the parts that are in this topic, then you will do well in CAT. If you don't get these topics right, you will do poorly in CAT. It's as simple as that. There is no escaping these two topics. Many people try to avoid geometry, try to leave it for later, believe that they'll revise the formulas later, but it's not something that you can mug. You can't mug it up, and you can't go through like a formula cheat sheet before CAT and expect to solve it on the actual day. Geometry takes time. It takes months for you to develop the confidence and skill required to solve geometry sets quickly. When you read a geometry question, it should immediately strike you that what concepts apply for this particular scenario. If you see a median, and if you have been solving geometry questions for a long time, then you will immediately know that if there is a median, maybe Apollonius theorem applies. Maybe the fact that a centroid divides a median in the ratio 2:1 applies. So whenever you, if you get into the you can get into that zone where you things automatically come to you only if you have actually covered your fundamentals early enough. So make sure that you've covered all the concepts that are there now. Focus on making sure that you do all the formulae, all the concepts, theorems. Now, so in case you are a Krakow subscriber, you will have a playlist for each of these. If you are doing the batches, we have focused on these two particular aspects early on. We have also introduced some other aspects of learning in the schedule, but mostly our initial focus is on these particular topics because it's important that you get these underway early on in your preparation. So focus on the formula, focus on the different concepts that are there, focus on the different theorems that are there, and don't just learn the concept or learn the theorem, immediately apply it with the help of a concept test. So if you are learning it on Krakow, every concept comes with a concept test of a 5-question concept test, so that you know immediately whether or not I have understood this theorem or not, and you can then be certain that okay, at least I know how to apply this theorem, how to apply this formula. So make sure that if you are using other sources, make sure that for every formula you search online for questions solved using that particular formula, solved using that particular theorem. Only when you have solved those questions on your own would you gain the confidence of applying it in the future. So make sure that every single theorem or concept that you learn, you take a concept test associated with it. Now, for both of these topics, make sure that either you have a playlist where Krakow does that work for you, or if you're not following our schedule, just write down what all concepts are there and what you have done, what all you have completed in that particular topic. So suppose you want to cover everything that is there in arithmetic, the way I would go about it is, I would have a notebook where I'd say, okay, in time, speed and distance, the concepts are, say for example, one of the concepts is that of relative velocity. So how many whether I have whether I understand the concept. So I'd say, okay, I have read about the concept, I understand the concept. Whether I have practiced the concept, how many questions of relative velocity I have practiced. Say I have practiced 20 questions. Then I can be relatively comfortable knowing that I have had some practice of relative velocity. That way I'll make a list of all the concepts that are there in time, speed and distance, and make sure that firstly I understand all the concepts that are there, understand all the formulas that are there, and that I have sufficient practice in that. This is the only organized way you can go about covering all the concepts that are there in a particular topic, especially given that arithmetic is vast. There's time, speed and distance, there's time and work, profit and loss. It's a huge topic and a wide variety of questions can come from this. You might think that averages, ratio and proportion is a trivial subject, but many questions come from that topic, and there are some ratio formulas that are ways of calculating using ratios that you need to know and that are important for you to know to actually solve many CAT level questions. So make sure that you make a thorough list of all the concepts that are there in each topic, and you cover that concept and get enough practice for each concept as such. So that is what I would recommend for quant. Focus on geometry and arithmetic, make a list of all the concepts that are there, go through the concepts, go through the formulae and start solving specific to that concept. Once you get some amount of confidence in geometry and arithmetic, you can solve like 60 to 70% of your CAT quant paper with some confidence level. So that's a huge bump. So if you were starting from like absolutely nothing, you'd immediately go up to like 80 percentile, 85 percentile in quant. So always make sure that you do these fundamentals before you do anything else. Make sure you put in the time to do this now, because this is the moment where you should start with the absolute bigger parts of your study. If you think of it in terms of, there's this story where if you have to fill a jar with if you have to fill the jar with like big stones, which are like the big parts of your life, your responsibilities, your family, your career, and then you have smaller stones such as your hobbies, your interests, and if you have the minor worries or this, which are the smaller stones, as the parable goes, you put in the big stones first so that you make room for them, and then you put in the smaller stones so that you make sure that all the smaller worries are also done, and then finally you put in the sand and the smallest stones. So always make sure that when you are in terms of CAT, if you have to make sure that you cover everything, you have to address the biggest parts of CAT quant first, and the biggest parts of CAT quant are geometry and arithmetic. Do not run away from geometry. I know many students do. It is counterproductive to do that. Address it head on from May onwards. Please go through geometry and start now. So let's go on to the next part, which is VA and RC. So in the month of May, what I would actually suggest is leave PJs and para summary for now. We'll come to that. It's an important concept. I'm not saying that you should leave para jumbles, you should leave para summary, but I would suggest that the biggest thing that will improve your VARC attempt and score overall is your ability in RC. If you can build your comprehension skills now, you'll do well in VARC. If you don't build your comprehension skills now, then you won't do well in VARC, irrespective of whether or not you know tips and tricks of PJs, etc. So how do you build your comprehension skills? So basically you need to make sure that you start reading. There is no escaping this. I would not suggest somebody starts reading in say October, because by then it is a little bit too late to develop a reading habit. But in May you should definitely start reading. Start reading easier sources first, like editorials of newspapers, then go to slightly harder sources such as long form essays from magazines like the Caravan, New Yorker, even NY Times sometimes runs large form like longer essays, etc. So read longer essays because they require you to stay focused for a longer period of time. So you're training your mind to not lose track of what is being said. So if you are able to keep reading through, like say 2000 words, then you will be able to read through 500 words with no difficulty without losing track of what is being said. So make sure that you start reading regularly. Start with articles, smaller articles, then go on to longer form essays. Also go on to other sources of reading, such as read from say philosophical books. There are many philosophers who are available on Gutenberg for free. Try reading from those sources. Try reading from there should be basically a wide variety of resources at your where you read from wide variety of sources, so that you have a ability to read from all kinds of topics. So if you see the topics that came in recent CAT, they were basically based on, say, science and technology, on social issues, psychological issues. So they were philosophical philosophical topics and all. So they were kind of topics that were easy to read, but also were relevant to our times as such. They were, when I meant easy to read, the English was not difficult, but each paragraph would have a distinct point or would have a distinct purpose to it. So it is not a novel in the way that a Chetan Bhagat novel is there, or even any other fiction writer's novel is there. Each paragraph in these kind of passages has a point. So you can have those kind of, if you can find longer form essays, even those, if you will see that every single passage in that particular longer form essay has a point. The author slowly builds up to a bigger point in a longer form essay. So you have to keep track of many points till you get the overall point that the author is trying to drive towards. So start reading from a wide variety of sources, so that you get into the habit of understanding and comprehending. So this is basically building your comprehension skills. The better your comprehension skills, the better you will be able to solve VARC. All of VARC, like if you improve your comprehension skills, you will do better in RC, you will do better in PJ, you will do better in PS. So all of it depends on your comprehension skills as such. And do active reading. So you don't just read. Every paragraph you read, you write down the main point of the paragraph. And after you have read the entire essay, you write the overall main point. This is important so that you are able to articulate your ideas better. If you are able to crystallize what you are reading into a one clear idea, then you will be able to not only solve questions that ask you what is the main point of this passage or what is the primary purpose. You'll also be able to answer questions from para-summary. You'll also be able to understand the chain of thought in para-jumbles as such. So the ability to write what is the main point of the paragraph is kind of crucial to understanding any paragraph or any passage as such. So make sure that you keep doing this over and over again. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So make sure that you keep writing the main point of the paragraph for each essay you read, each passage, each essay you read. It's not important to just read, it's also important to start solving some RC sets. So in Krakow's training in our course, we split up, for RCs, we split up RCs according to types of RCs as well as the different types of questions that come in RC. For example, we focus on how to answer questions, what is the main point of the passage, how to answer questions, what is the tone of the passage, what is the primary purpose of the passage. So you can do that, you can look at those particular specific areas as well and try to improve your accuracy in a particular question type across RC sets, and do a targeted or focused practice on that, so that you have a good level of accuracy for subjective questions. Subjective questions will take up like half of your RC attempt. So if you are good at it, then it will significantly improve your accuracy of all RCs as such. This will come with if you solve RC sets. So it's important that you start solving RC sets as well, say one a day. If you are if you're not good at RCs, if you're not good at verbal, I would suggest say 2 per day should be a good starting point. Even if you're weak in RC, it would be a good starting point for you to get better in RC as such. Another thing that you should actually focus on right now is to start collecting sources of reading material. So a lot of students struggle like where should I read from. So start noting down areas, so noting down sites that you can go and read from. So for example, NY Times, The New Yorker, Caravan Magazine. So find out your own list where you can regularly go and find good reading material for your week's reading. So always make sure that if I would suggest that if you can make a Google sheet, where you keep posting good articles, even if you don't have time to read at the very moment when that article appears on the site. If you just post it and read it later, if you keep a track of all the good reading material you come across, then you can keep noting down sites and earmarking some passages for future use. Because as you go in your preparation, in the later months, I am going to ask you to read more and solve more from RCs, and at that point of time, scrambling to find passages would be a waste of time. If you note down good sources now, then it would save you time later on. So also try like earmarking sites, bookmarking sites that are good places for you to read. So that is your work for this month for VARC. So in DILR, what I generally suggest is you should have a plan going in terms of how you are going to represent the information given any DILR set. A good point to start with DILR set is basically noting down the different types of DILRs that have been asked. So there are, in Krakow website, you will have a list of DILRs that have come either in the previous year's CAT or generally are asked in these kind of MBA exams. You will have a list of them. For example, there are puzzles, there are arrangement questions, there are scheduling questions, team selection questions, then there are questions on 2D space LRs, there are questions on there's just routes and networks. So there are basically like n types of LRs that have already come and hence are things that we know about. There might be a totally different type of puzzle that they might ask in DILR, and then we'll have to think at that time on our feet. But if it is something that has come, if it has already come in CAT once, there's a chance that a similar type of puzzle might come again. So even though the same puzzle won't come, but there's still a likelihood that a permutation based puzzle might come again in CAT. So in that case, you should figure out how you should represent information in a permutation kind of puzzle. So what you should take a look at is what are the different types of DILR sets that are there. Note down how to represent information. If you get into the logical representation of information mode, then this will become repetitive to you. For a lot of, like say for example, if you are get into the mode of solving Venn diagrams, drawing the Venn diagram will become second nature to you, filling it will become second nature to you, and then it will become less unreliable, less tricky. So make sure that you note down how to represent information, and there are some basic parts of DILR that you should do now. First is the logical representation of information. Make sure that you go through how to logically represent information. That is the basic logical operands, that is not of something, or, and, etc. So how do you, so this is and, this is or. So how to represent logical rules using these kind of operands. How to represent if statements or if and if only statements. This is the basic fundamental that helps you kind of write down, that is what is a big statement into smaller logical rules, and that will help you solve questions from both arrangement, from team selection, from a wide variety of sources, because it's essentially a way of stating logical rules. Like you express mathematical equations, you can write down logical equations, and the way you write down logical equations is using these logical operands. So learn what the logical operands are. They are essential information for the later stages of your preparation. Also do the basic parts of DILR such as Venn diagrams. People ignore Venn diagrams, though they have almost consistently come in DILR for years together. This is something that you should definitely solve, and given the fact that it is consistently coming, this is one of those sets that you should definitely get right in your CAT attempt. So focus on Venn diagrams, on logical representation of information, and I would suggest arrangement and puzzles. So though easy arrangement questions no longer come, they come in the format of puzzles. So where there is arrangement plus there are some extra logical rules that are applied. So start with easier arrangement questions like linear arrangement, then you get into the flow of how to answer arrangement questions. Then you can look at things like circular arrangement, arrangement across levels. So once you have the idea of how to arrange items, then you can look at arrangement of items where there are puzzles involved, where basically it's either a time-based arrangement. So it's a time-based arrangement is still a linear arrangement. Somebody came earlier, somebody left, somebody came like based on the time in which somebody comes in. You can say that the time in which people arrive is basically a form of linear arrangement. So only if you have like some experience of doing linear arrangement and circular arrangement would these puzzles become easier for you to solve later on. So try to do these basic types of DILRs now. Also, I would say that target solving 1 to 2 sets of each type. So if you have noted down what are the different types of DILR that have come, you can even head on to krakow.in, go to our DILR section. There's a playlist for each type of DILR that is there. So if you see, these are the different types of DILR that have occurred. So for each name, you can try to see if you can find a DILR set for each type of DILR and try to solve that set. So this will give you exposure to what all different types of DILRs come in CAT. So this will give you a basic idea of the breadth of questions that come in this section. Again, this is a section one can never be fully prepared for, because you can be asked about anything which is solvable logically. So there are no set rules, there are no set steps to solving everything. But the more prepared you are for the different types of things that come, the better equipped you will be even to solve those which you have not seen before. So make sure that you at least first start off with those types of DILR sets that have appeared in CAT. Figure out how to correctly represent information for that. Learn the logical way of representing information. Learn basics like Venn diagrams, arrangement, puzzles, so that you have a good base in DILR. Then you can build from there. So this is what you should target to do in the month of May. So the month of May is crucial time for building a foundation. If you build a good foundation, then you can start off your attempts in CAT mocks at a range of 85 or so, which is a respectable range for you to build from and go on to a good final CAT score. So make sure that you build the foundation now, because if you are trying to increase your CAT, if you are trying to correct like mistakes in your foundation in October or November, it kind of takes away from your overall CAT score. It will hamper your overall attempt. So make sure you get the foundation right now. So that is what I would suggest. Please make sure that you tweak this particular schedule according to your own personal strengths and weaknesses. If you are weaker in a particular section, spend more time on it. If you are stronger in a particular section, keep reviewing information from it, but you can spend lesser time than what I have indicated. So it again has to depend on your individual strengths and weaknesses. You have to tweak it on that basis as well. So this is what I would suggest for what you should do in the month of May. Again, just knowing what to do is not enough. You have to go back and actually start preparing and start doing things. So please make sure that you start solving today. Start practicing, start learning concepts, start taking concept tests. That is the only way that you can get a good CAT score. Thank you for tuning in. To crack CAT, you need a lot of practice, and you can practice by taking Krakow's free mock. Just Google search Krakow free CAT mock. Follow the link to get the free mock. We have put in a free mock with the latest pattern and with detailed solutions.